Debbie Wasserman Schultz does not have a political challenger as of this moment in 2024, and yet somehow has already raised $1 million for her re-election next year. Would you like to take a look at where some of that money's coming from? Because I'm sure right now it is swimming in all that corporate filth.
Well, it's a lot of AIPAC, I'm sure, and it's a lot of military-industrial complex. It's her usual suspects.
Well, Debbie also takes a hell of a lot of money from big law firms. And why are big law firms a big deal? Because the law firms is where the money gets washed.
Right.
So
that's basically a money laundering situation.
No offense to lawyers, you know.
Sorry.
But
taken.
Yeah, ultimately, that's where are they technically breaking the law? No, but it doesn't mean it's not ethical. It could, because it's not. And so understanding that's just one representative.
But she plays the Jew card. She has two cards that she plays. One is the Jew card. The other is the breast cancer survivor card. Those are her lanes. She'll also always come out of the woodwork when there's a gun control thing, because that's another one where she takes a hard stand because there's no consequences for her. But her main issues are anything having to do with calling out everybody for being anti-Semitic. She is like somehow the poster child for Jews calling everybody anti-Semitic.
And if that's not enough, this anti-labor piece of crap had the audacity to put out a tweet today that got some movement from the liberal crowd about how if it wasn't for Joe Biden, UAW wouldn't have gotten their contract. Now she most certainly did. And so
that is the most sycophantic and let me
I almost wanted us to respond to it, but I'm like, you know what? Don't even engage her. There's no point.
No.
You know, but the fact you know what? I'm gonna read to you guys exactly how filthy this is.
She really does put the sick and sycophant.
It's because it's beyond the pale. It turns into
Joe Biden is the reason that the UAW situation ended well.
Yeah.
That's why. It was Joe. It was all his hard work. It was his whole 12 minutes of standing there on the line with them. That's what it was. That's what really brought it home.
So this is how Debbie always frames everything. Remember, everything is always against the Republicans. Note to any confused voters, Joe Biden just now, apparently, can't even keep up with dates, just stood on a UAW picket line to help get a big raise for auto workers from Ford, because it was Joe who insisted that they give them the raise, even though that happened over a month ago. House Republicans just elected a speaker who wants to slash Social Security and Medicare from our seniors, even though it's divided government with a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House, or a Democratic presidency. Don't you understand that anytime there's divided government, the craziest shit always gets to the table, but we all know it'll never pass.
Right.
This is what we call kicking the can down the road.
But she isn't wrong that we now have pretty much like a psychotic Speaker of the House. I mean, this guy's off the chain.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
He's got quite a little history in his short tenure there.
Listen, he's part of the Freedom Caucus, I believe. This is like suggesting between Representative Johnson and Representative Jeffries, are you going to get working class economic policy that's going to transform this country?
Well, that's not going to happen.
No, you're not.
But the point that she points at these people like they're so beyond the pale. And I look at her and it's like, you're sitting there and completely condoning a genocide, lady. You're condoning a genocide.
Cheerleading.
Exactly.
Cheerleading.
You're cheerleading a genocide, you sick psycho.
And remember, Debbie is much more sophisticated at this game than somebody like a Jared Moskowitz. He's a rookie. She's running for her 11th congressional term. So when you're in politics for that long, you learn a few things, like how to say Israel has the right to defend itself against Hamas. What that means is Israel has carte blanche to do whatever the F they want. That's what that means.
Again, I will say to the people that were in here earlier, it's not, I do agree that Israel has the right to defend itself. If a sovereign nation were to attack Israel, I would think that it has the right to defend itself.
Travers, did you have to do that? Smart ass.
But the fact that it was not attacked by a sovereign nation. So I don't see how this is self-defense. This was an attack by escaped people from their concentration camps. So this is much more akin to a slave rebellion. And I have seen scholars, people that I respect, people that I watch, really kind of looking at this. Norman Finkelstein mentioned this as well. This is much more in line with Nat Turner's slave rebellion than it is with an act of war. This isn't a war. If people are kept in a prison situation and they break out and attack their oppressor, that's not a war. That's not a war. That's a riot based on conditions that are completely subhuman.
And I definitely agree that the whole intention here is to, as I said, the goal is to commit the mass genocide that they have been wanting to commit for many, many years. And they feel that they have their opening now for a number of reasons. They have a president in this country who is not calling the shots.
He's barely awake.
How do I know he's not calling the shots? As I pointed out on the last live stream, the first person to meet with Netanyahu after the attack was not President Biden. It was President Blinken. He was the first person who had a joint presser with Bibi Netanyahu. Anytime a significant situation like that occurs, it is always the president who goes first, but not this one. And we know why. Because unfortunately, we have a president who isn't arbitrarily making any decisions. And that is a scary place to be right now. It really is. And somebody who is just going to
I don't know what's scarier, having him not being making decisions or having someone like him making decisions.
Either way, we are not in a good place because there isn't one person. And yeah, you got to point the finger at Bernie Sanders, because he is not, even in a tepid way, saying that we have to get to the negotiating table. It's like, Bernie, what are you doing?
I can't believe that what Katie just told us that just came through, that they just all signed
unanimously, without even thinking about it.
They're drones. They're drones.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Part of this is because there is a contingent within Washington between both parties, all of the Democrats and a nice, healthy chunk of the Republicans who do not want Donald Trump in the White House again. So they're going to do everything in their capacity to rub elbows to try to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And if that means that they have to condone a genocide,
they'll do it.
They'll do it.
If they think that that's going to help Biden get
apparently they
reelected.
do. Apparently, killing 2.1 million Palestinians is just a small price to pay to keep Trump out of the White House.
And that also begs the question, how much worse this is going to get, because Trump is not going to get challenged. He is going to run away with this nomination like you can't even begin to understand. And there are those who think that he was going to have some type of a challenge. Let me assure you, Governor DeSantis, bleeding support. Governor Haley, bleeding support. Why? Because they are the two biggest neocons running for president right now. I would say Lindsey Graham if he actually was running for president, but nevertheless.
But that's all, folks.
Mm-hmm. So now that you have these two super neocons, full throat, you-know-whating Israel, it's not helping them. In fact, it's hurting them significantly. Donald Trump, of all the people in this country, you know what pisses me off the most? Donald Trump is the guy who, when the wind blows a certain way, maybe in the next week or so, you know, we totally have to call for a ceasefire in the Middle East. It's a terrible thing that's happening.
Well, he just said, right, it's whatever in the moment.
It's really terrible. We have to save those people's lives. They're not innocent. We must destroy Hamas. Hamas is terrible people. But the Palestinians are innocent people. They're really decent.
You know what? I'm so tired of people.
But you could so see that happen.
I can see it. Well, he'll opportunize on whatever he can. But, you know, the Jewish people, when you're talking about, oh, but Hamas, I'm so tired of hearing that. I really am. I'm so tired of hearing it, because the bottom line is that whether or not Hamas was there has nothing to do with the situation that we are ultimately in. That situation started long before Hamas was there.
Chris, the problem that we're in right now.
That's how I feel, Chris. Exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
I do respect Bernie for taking it as far as he did, but I think I can understand why some people are disappointed, and especially when I hear him signing off on something like this.
That's because we have no real leaders in this moment, and we're so desperate for them. You know, I'm not going to say that Rashida Tlaib or even Cori Bush, and even to a degree AOC, are not doing what they feel they can to lead in this moment. But you know what? It's not enough.
Well, you know what? But how dare somebody like Moskowitz go after her for doing her friggin' job?
Of course. But therein lies the rub.
Can we invite him on and show him all the millions of ways we've been lied to?
First of all, he would never come on the show. So
I know, but then we could at least say we invited him. So
sure.
I would love to go down the list and we could only stick within the past 10, 20 years. We don't even have to go far back of the amount of lies that have been told by our country, first of all, Israel, you know that their State Department is lying if their lips are moving. Sorry, but you do. Okay? I don't believe a word that comes out of their mouth. And for Joe Biden to sit there and say that he doesn't believe the Palestinian Authority, I'm sorry, they've got some pretty damning, pretty visible evidence and documentation.
As we said at the beginning of the podcast, there were Palestinians on Twitter that were basically going line by line of every person that was
killed. Even if they did, you should have to 45% of the people that their homes have been destroyed or damaged. So literally you have over 1 million people wandering around in rubble with no water, no power, no hospitals, no help, no burn ointment for their babies. And this is somehow Israel defending itself.
And you've got people in the State Department giving pressers
so angry
in the White House briefing room that are basically saying, yeah, war's terrible and a lot of these kids are going to die. And that's with no hesitation. With no hesitation.
Make no mistake, people, Jews in this country are raised to believe that they are superior to Arabs.
And that is where a lot of anti-Semitism comes from.
We were raised to believe that they are lesser. And when you see that guy, and I wanted to play that, I mean, I don't know if you did that, but like, what was the guy's name? The defense minister, person who's the policy advisor to Netanyahu. Guys, there was an interview. This was an interview on PBS NewsHour. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, to me, that's a fairly innocuous news source. PBS NewsHour at minute 14.15, there is an interview with who I think looks like a Nazi. He really does. He sounds like a Nazi. He looks like a Nazi. And basically chuckling away at all the death because they have to get Hamas. And so, these people really do not care because they do believe that Israeli children are more valuable than Palestinian children. They believe that.
Base Chad Thunderjock, thank you for making an appearance. Imagine thinking the invasion of Gaza is to destroy Hamas. Right. Well, let's opine this notion that is what they're doing. Does anybody still not understand that when you go in and you commit mass murder, because that's what it is. We say it's a mass genocide, just say what it really is. It's mass murder because that gets into people's brain. So it's committing mass murder. Do you think you're not going to create more terror cells as a result?
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.